Okay, welcome to the Dublin City Council virtual meeting. Glad to have y'all here today. We're going to begin by asking Councilman Jones if he will give us our invocation, and then we'll say the pledge to the flag. Councilman Jones.
Yes, ma'am. We all bow our heads. Lord, just thank you that you've given us, Lord, the opportunity, Lord, to gather and conduct city business, Lord. You get credit, Lord, as you matter, Lord, give us wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and to continue, Lord, to bless this beautiful city of ours, Lord, to bless this great country and state of ours, Lord. We just thank you now. These are the blessings, bless your son, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Again, thank everyone for joining in. We've got one citizen here, and we've got the paper, the television, Robert, and the two police officers for the audience, so you will know. Item number 1 on the agenda is approval of the February 4th, 2021 City Council meeting minutes. Got a motion by Mr. Brown and a second by Mr. Jones. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Or raise your hand. Those opposed, motion carries. Blake, you get that okay? Or Josh? Okay. Okay, item number 2 is approval of bills over $3,000. I hear a motion, I see a motion to approve. Got a motion by Chris Smith, second by Paul Griggs. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item number 3 is approval of purchase over $3,000. Mr. Jones?
And no purchases, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, item number 4 is presentation by Greg Chapman of Nichols Cawley and Associates, LLC, of the fiscal year 20 comprehensive annual financial report. This is something that I think the city staff sent to each of you earlier this week. Greg, we'll turn it over to you, and thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to take a moment to thank y'all in this unusual environment. This is the first time I've presented y'all over a meeting, so we do appreciate the opportunity to serve the city by performing the annual audit. This is for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020. That audit is normally due by the end of December, but due to COVID, the governor's extension allowed us to March, but we were able to get it done right at the end of December, early January. So I was going to share my screen, but I don't. Oh wait, no, I got it. Here we go. So just to highlight what we're going to go over real quickly today is to talk about the results of the audit, make some required communications that are, as your auditor, we're required to make to the council. We'll hit a few very quick financial highlights and wrap up with questions. In our opinion, we state our responsibility, and our responsibility as auditor is to perform audits in accordance with the generally accepted auditing standards, and as a government auditing standards, provide reasonable assurance that the financial statements are free of material misstatements. So what that means is we get your trial balance, your financial information, and we do tests to ensure that those financial numbers are reasonably stated. In our audit, we do consider the internal control of the city, but we don't render an opinion on the city's internal control, but that's an important part of us giving us the comfort to render our opinion. I'm happy to announce that our opinion is unmodified for the city. Unmodified is accounting jargon for a clean opinion, so that's a good opinion. So that is what you're looking for, and that does mean that your financials are fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. And our audit only extends to financial information presented in the city's cap. announced some information we are required to communicate to the city. The first one being, in your financial statements, there's the financial numbers at the front, and there's the notes. As part of those notes, note 1 is your significant accounting policy. That just describes how you account for things such as prepaids, capital assets, what your policies are for accounting for those financial items. We do review your policies to ensure they're in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles, and we had no issue with those. In your financials, I always like to say there's good solid numbers such as cash that are easy to audit. I can contact your bank and get information about how much cash the bank or the city has, but there are also estimates in your financials, and most of that has to do. The biggest of those are your pension and OPEB valuations. Those calculations are performed by actuaries, which are hired by the city, and we review those calculations, and in doing so, we've had no problem with those. And then finally, we do review the note disclosures. The rest of the note disclosures, not just note 1, to ensure that they are fairly stated and accurate, and again, we had no issue with the disclosures. Continuing on required communications, we are required to disclose whether we had any issues dealing with management or staff, and as usual, I'm happy to say that we did not. Blake and his team, Blake and Leslie and their teams, as well as other departments in the city, we have to, in determining single audit requirements, we have to communicate with the police department, the sheriff, and the fire department, and everyone that we dealt with was very helpful in getting what we needed. During our audit, there are adjustments made. There was some this year, one of those being one related to sales taxes, nothing significant, just normal adjustments. We provided a list of those to the city, and they're available under request. After the audit adjustments, and that's another accounting jargon. What that means is that after their adjustments, we put in management and say we think we should make this, and they ought not to. And there were none of those. Anything that was suggested or recommended during the audit process was accepted by management. As a part of audit, auditing standard requires to get representation from management, and that ultimately just says that we gave you what you needed, and we answered those any questions accurate or correctly, and we get that letter, and it's a copy of that provided to management, and then again, no significant issue, they went along as planned. As your auditor, we are required to be independent in relation to the city, and that's similar to other enterprises as well. We can't be an investor in a company and also do the audit. Same thing with the city. I can't provide certain services to the city that would be
in the second reading of public hearing will be March.
We are independent in relation to the city. We did not perform any kind of management advisory services during the year 2020 that could violate our
Just notice that. That's what we're going to do.
Just looking at a few quick highlights at this point, the financials are 8 months past the current date, so we won't spend a lot of time, but just to provide a highlight of some of the impacts during 2020. Overall, I don't think it would be too surprising to hear that revenue did decrease. A lot of that was due to municipal court fines that closure related to that affected fine revenue, interest income with the falling interest rates, and then there was miscellaneous revenues that were down as well. Some of those decreases were offset partially by increase in tax revenues. That's not per se property tax revenues, but tax revenues as a whole. The local option sales tax was up over the prior year, so that did offset that decrease. Some of the total revenues were down about $388,000. As far as expenditures, there was an increase in expenditures primarily related to public safety and public works, and that ended, your ending fund balance for 2020 ended up at $4.4 million, and that represents about 4 months of fund balance. The government, GFOA, the Government Financial Officers Association, recommend a minimum of 2 months. Of course, you would want to have some extra reserves to carry you through hard times. So a 4-month fund balance is a strong fund balance. is the 1% sales tax that's the city receives and is used for capital projects, exclusively for capital projects. This can't be used for operational type revenues. So during the year, as I mentioned with the local option sales tax, special purpose local option sales tax increased by $488,000. And the city continued on projects with these lost funds, the biggest of which was the completion, the finishing up and the completion of the Jackson Street Plaza. There was about $137,000 worth of public safety equipment, $630,000 public works sanitation equipment, and then finally $615,000 worth of water and sewer improvements and equipment. Ending at the end of 2020 of around $3.8 million in fund balance for future capital projects and equipment purchases. Then the city continues to work on those projects in 2021. Looking at the other funds, we also have a T-SPLOS project. Everyone's aware that the biggest project ongoing out of T-SPLOS is the Hillcrest Parkway project, $2.5 million total spent. In addition to Hillcrest, there was some work done on Springdale Road and Stubbs Park. So that 1 cent T-SPLOS is going to help improve the city's streets. And then finally, the enterprise funds. These are the water fund, the gas fund, telecom, and sanitation and golf course fund. Overall, those funds decreased a total of $1.2 million for the year. That was after transfers. The total net down was $1.2 million. Just looking at your general fund, this is always, I think, a good illustration of what the city is spending the money on. As most would expect, the city is spending about half, or exactly half of the expenditures during the year on public safety. That's very much in line with what other governments do, somewhere between 40 to 60%. So you're right there in the middle of 50%. Just a trend on general fund balance, as I said, that did increase slightly over the past year. There was a drop back in 2015, 2016. I know part of that was moving the T-SPLOS fund out to a separate fund, so those resources were moved out. But since then, in 2017, looking forward, it's been a relatively stable fund balance in the general fund over the past 4 years. Enterprise funds, I think during the last year, the gas fund took a dip. I think the prices were down, or demand was down, I think, with the prices. But that did cause a decrease in revenues, which impacted the net position of the gas fund. The water funds continues to grow in net position. That allows them to invest in infrastructure and continue to keep that service being able to be provided. Finally, looking at other matters, I definitely won't bore you with this, but we do have coming in 2022 a new accounting standard related to leases. This is not only affecting the governmental enterprises, this also affects public entities or private entities. They're having similar accounting that's going to be required for leases. And ultimately, what that means is putting the leases on your balance sheet. In the past, if you rented a copier, then you just paid rent every month for that copier. Starting in 2022, you'll actually have to put a right to use a tangible asset on the books for your right to use that copier, and then you'll have to put a debt on the books similar to a loan for the debt of that lease, and those books will taper down over the life of that lease. And again, that's applicable in 2022. And then that was all I had as far as the presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions for the council, mayor, and council.
Thank you, Greg. Council, are there any questions you'd like to ask Greg or Blake?
Greg, this is Paul. I was curious on the lease thing. Is that like on equipment type things, or is it buildings, or does it include like if you lease the building?
It's anything related to a lease. As far as you being the one borrowing for the lease, or some governments have water towers that have cellular antennas on top of them. So if you had a lease receivable, it's going to put that lease receivable on the books. But yes, it's equipment, it's buildings. If you were leasing some office space in a building, normally you would just pay a rent expense. But once that standard takes effect, that put it on the balance sheet. Not of the general fund itself, but on the government-wide financial statement. So you wouldn't see it here day to day, but in the government-wide, the full accrual presentation of the financial statements, you can see those lists on the books.
Thank you.
Greg, as far as the reserves that we have and the monthly funding that we have for the reserves, the funds that we have, are they sufficient, or do we need to adjust that in?
I think you're okay right now. You know, a lot of that always depends. I've got coastal governments that keep 6 to 8 months of general fund expenditures and fund balance, but they could easily get impacted by hurricane. I won't say that's impossible here, because we've seen that in the last 2 to 3 years where we've had some impact from hurricanes. But 4 months is double what the minimum recommendation is for the general fund. So I think right now you're in a good stable position for fund balance.
Any other questions? Greg, we really appreciate yours and Nichols Colley and Associates' relationship with the city and how y'all have worked with us. And Blake, you and your crew have done a great job. They have to have y'all's support to do this audit, so we appreciate what you have done to make that process easier and flow better. And if there are no further questions, I guess, Greg, that will conclude your report. You're welcome to stay on with us, or if you got to drop off and do somebody's taxes, that's okay too.
Will do. I appreciate it. Thank y'all very much.
Okay, thank you.
Imagine a life-changing injury. Imagine the fear and unknown. The Houston Clinic Sports Medicine Team, the only physicians in the area with advanced certification in orthopedic sports medicine, treats sports injuries with innovative techniques. The Houston Clinic has helped nearly 1 million athletes live without pain. Imagine getting back in the game. Imagine the best game of your life. The Houston Clinic Sports Medicine Team.
You want to acquire real-world skills instead of student loan debt? OFTC gives you an opportunity to succeed in a safe and caring learning community with flexible classes on campus and online. In just 2 years, you could be ready for a career in a lucrative field that you love. Whatever lies ahead, education and skills training from OFTC can give you the confidence to succeed.
Oconee Fall Line Technical College. Think differently about college. OFTC is an equal opportunity institution.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask Mayor Pro Tem Edwards if he will handle item number 5. The company I'm a broker for is involved in that transaction, so I will recuse myself. Thank you. Curtis?
Thank you, Mayor. Item number 5 on the agenda is the first reading of ordinance annexing and incorporating 10 acres or more. City Manager Lance Jones, can you read that first reading for us?
I'm getting unmuted. Yes, sir. This ordinance number 21-02, annexing and incorporating into the municipality of the City of Dublin, Georgia, 10 acres or more than of land located on the south side of Highway 257 and east of Billy Rutledge, part of parcel ID 101C-172 as B2 highway-oriented business zone. Proposed use is a convenience store.
Thank you, Lance. The second reading and public hearing will be at our March 4th meeting of this year. Thank you. Y'all want to bring the mayor back in? You just want to kind of go with that? I don't want to bring him back here.
I'm afraid y'all will talk about me. I'm afraid y'all will talk about me if I don't come back. Okay, thank you, Mr. Edwards. Item number 6 is discussion and action of a resolution designating city manager agent to set prices at Riverview Golf Course. Explain that to us, Lance. You're muted.
There we go. Attorney Powell's done some research on how we are handling things at the golf course, and we can't find on record where a resolution was done earlier. There may be one in the minutes somewhere we just hadn't found, but allowing the city manager to set prices at the golf course for items under $500. So this resolution allows me to do that, and I'll designate, Steve Brown to set those prices, recommend them to me. So, resolution number 2104, resolution by the mayor and council of the city of Dublin to designate the city manager or his or her designee as agent pursuant to OCGA section 3637(6)B for the disposition of certain personal property of the city pursuant to said code section, provide for an effective date and for other lawful purposes.
Okay, council, do you have any questions for Mr. Jones on this? If not, by show of hands, I'll entertain a motion in a second. Got a motion by Mr. Griggs, second by Mr. Edwards, that we approve the resolution. Any discussion? If not, by show of hands, all those in favor say aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, sir. Okay, item number 7 is discussion and or action on a resolution to seek membership in the AARP network of age-friendly communities. Mr. Jones and I met with these folks, and I think Katie and Heather were on the call with us as well. And Mr. Jones, do you mind going on over this with us?
The AARP has a program set up and it, of course, focuses a lot on people over, I think they go down to 50 now, but certainly start at 55 and as you age, the needs of those people in the community. But it's really to help enhance the community for everybody. And they have a lot of resources that they make available to you, help you work through ideas you might have to improve your community. There's no cost for them doing this with us. Basically what they ask you to do is come up with some things, and they help you figure out how to implement those. And it's a sort of a 5-year process that you go through to achieve the goals that we set. There are no particular requirements that we do anything specific, but we would work with them to come up with programs that council approves and move forward on making this Dublin a better place to live for everybody.
Any questions or comments? I think Lance probably sent this out to everyone a week or so ago, the presentation. Mr.
Yes, I received the presentation, and I see a number of cities that joined this AARP membership, starting back, I guess, as far back as maybe 2014. But after reading it, have we identified any specifics how it would benefit us as the city of Dublin?
Yes, sir. I think well, for one thing, it's not a downside. It's not costing us anything to go forward with it. And they do have a lot of technical help available, some advice they can give us on, like if we wanted to do additional sidewalks or different kinds of sidewalk crossings, just anything you can think of to make the city a better place for everybody to live, but especially as we age. And we've got an aging population. Everybody's getting a little older, and they can really help us identify projects and then carry those projects through.
Is that the end of your question, Mr. Davis?
I guess it partially answered it. I guess it's just sharing information. Is that what that would be, Lance?
Yes.
You said help us.
Yeah, to a large extent, and they can also help us with some technical aspects of different projects, like what's needed for, I can't think of the word, but for American with Disabilities Act questions, things like that, and things that can aid people in being able to get around.
I'd like to say one thing that I think possibly it might do, and I don't know that it would happen a lot, but there are retiring people who are looking for a place to retire. designated communities in the state, and this would dovetail right in with that as well.
Anyone else? Well, looking at council, it'll probably affect all but about 2 of us. Maybe Benny too, I don't know. Okay, y'all have heard you've heard the staff's recommendation and of course mine too. Do I hear a motion to adopt the resolution? Or see a motion? Got Mr. Edwards, Mr. Brown. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand for aye. Those opposed, motion carries.
The City of Dublin Natural Gas provides the most cost-efficient source of energy available today. So for your home, choose the most natural resource. Safe, clean, efficient. All new subdivisions around the Dublin area have natural gas available. Start reducing your energy bills today with Dublin City Natural Gas Department. Natural gas, the smart choice. Call 277-5048 today and let us help you start saving today.
Dr. Collins Quartang and the City of Hope Heart and Vascular Center reminds you that February is Heart Health Month. Did you know that cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women in the United States? There's no need to put off an examination. Cardiovascular disease kills more women than cancer. 1 woman dies every 80 seconds in the United States due to cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease can affect women of any age. Dr. K specializes in internal medicine, echocardiography, nuclear cardiology, general adult cardiology, and interventional cardiology. Other areas of expertise include acute and chronic heart attack management, peripheral interventions to save legs from being amputated, heart rhythm abnormalities like atrial fibrillation. At City of Hope Heart and Vascular Center, we do your heart right. Call for an appointment today at 478-353-1970. Accepting new patients and walk-ins. Relax, Dublin. Dr. K and City of Hope has you covered.
Okay, item number 8 is discussion and action on declaration of surplus. Mr. Jones.
As you know, we'll be taking down the old Central Elementary School. The high school section was already taken down several years ago. As part of the Stubbs Park project, it is directly in the path of what we need to do. So that building needs to come down. And it's kind of been our act. The city has all kinds of things stored in there, and we're getting out everything. Everybody's kind of gone through it, gotten out what we can use, and but there is a lot of stuff left over, as you can imagine. So what we want to do is surplus these things and put them on gut deals. There are old wooden desks the school left when they pulled out years ago. Just a ton of different items, lots of file cabinets and lunch tables. There's even a kayak over there. I think there are pictures in there of everything. And I think, a lot of it's things people would be interested in having. If you need a new file cabinet, it's a good chance to pick 1 or 2 up, inexpensive to be on the gut deal. So.
Okay, do I hear a motion from council to declare the item surplus, or see a motion by the raise of hand? Got a motion by Mr. Brown, a second by Mr. Davis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, raise your hand for aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Okay, item number 9 is discussion and/or action on a resolution to approve an FRA grant agreement and a memorandum of agreement with the Georgia Central Railroad. Mr. Jones.
As you will remember, about a year ago, well, it's been more than a year, we started talking with the Georgia Central Railroad about being their go-between local authority for them to get a grant to improve the rail line between Macon and Savannah. they've already been doing a lot of work in there. It's $4 million from the federal government, and then they match it with $4 million. So it's $8 million worth of freight, improvements on that rail line that they're doing and will be doing. And it'll really increase the chances for commerce between, us and the port. Mr. Powell worked very hard on an agreement with the railroad, and the upshot is they need a local authority, the government authority to sort of be the go-between with them in this grant. We wanted to make 100% sure that the city won't have any liability. We're not going to be liable for any of this money. And they have a private administrator that will be working with our grants person, Katie Morton, and doing the bulk of the work on this. She'll be keeping kind of an eye on it, but we're not required to audit it or anything. So if there are any questions, we can take them now, and then I can read the resolution.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Go ahead.
It's a resolution by the Mayor and Council of the City of Dublin to accept and approve the terms and conditions of a grant agreement between the City and Federal Railroad Administration, FRA, and also the terms and conditions of an amended and restated memorandum of agreement between the City and Georgia Central Railway, LP, or GCR, to establish the timing for execution of said agreements, to authorize and direct the Mayor and City Council to execute and deliver the same, to set an effective date and for other lawful purposes.
Okay, you've heard the resolution. Do I hear a motion to approve it? Or see a motion? You got Mr. Smith and Mr. Davis. The first motion by Mr. Smith, Mr. Gerald Smith, second by Mr. Davis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say, raise your hand for aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. One question, Lance. Does this was that triangle put in this deal in any way? The triangle?
Yes, so just, hopefully they're building up it's a separate thing. It's not in this agreement.
Okay. Is that still working all right? Working toward it? If y'all know what I'm talking about, the triangle by the ice house over there that we're gonna put a little parking in. Okay. Item number 10, citizens' comments. Are there any citizens that would like to address council tonight? If not, we'll go to council comments. Mr. Jones, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mayor. I thank everyone for tuning in to our meeting tonight, and hope everyone stay dry and stay safe throughout this, and we need to remember to mask up, social distancing just not over, wash our hands, do curb this the pandemic. We're almost, I can say we're almost out, but it seems like we're getting better, put it that way. And so we just need to continue to stay the course, and those that can get vaccinated, please, and continue to keep everyone in our prayers, breathe family in our prayers, and our military in their prayers. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Mr. Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To echo what Mr. Jones has stated before me, and also would like to thank Greg Chapman with Nichols Calling for his presentation. Appreciate what they do for us on a yearly basis. And also thank our city clerk, Blake Daniels, and his staff for the government's work that they do in helping put this together and supplying information to Nichols Calling. So thank you guys. That's all, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Davis.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in or viewing the meeting this evening, and I want to just continue to encourage everyone to practice the safety protocols.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chris Smith.
I too want to thank everyone for joining in and just continue to encourage everyone to stay safe and bundle up.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Mr. Griggs.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank Greg for his presentation, and echo what everybody else has had. Stay safe. That's it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Edwards?
Ditto what everyone else has said, and, thank you for all the city employees for everything y'all do every day in and day out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Gerald Smith?
Echo what everybody else has said. Y'all be safe, stay warm. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Daniels?
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Powell?
No comments, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Jones?
Everybody be safe.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I really look forward to us meeting back in person one day, and but in the meantime, let's stay safe and do our due diligence. No further business, stand adjourned. Thank you.